It all started with her phone buzzing at 2 a.m. I could hear it vibrate against the bedside table, a rhythmic pulse that cut through the silence of the night. At first, I just rolled over, groggy and half asleep. Emily had said it was work, that she had to deal with some late-night emergencies that were coming up with the marketing team. I believed her. At least I wanted to. Emily and I had been married for 5 years, and while things had started off blissfully, they had shifted over time. The passion was still there, but it felt dulled, like a once bright painting that had faded. There were signs, small ones, that I had brushed aside. The late nights at the office, the sudden need to go out with her friends more often, her phone being glued to her hip. I had thought it was just the stress of work. We all went through phases. But as I lay there in the dark, her phone kept buzzing and my gut churned with unease. After a few nights of this, I decided to take action. Maybe it was the late-night paranoia, or maybe it was instinct kicking in, but I answered her phone once while she was in the shower. It wasn't HR. The voice on the other end was deep and smooth, and I could hear laughter in the background. They were making plans, probably for some weekend trip. I quickly hung up, my heart racing. I couldn't believe it. Could she really be seeing someone else? It felt surreal, like I was trapped in a nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. I confronted her that same night after I had let the shock settle. Emily was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, her hair damp from the shower. I felt sick. I approached her, a mix of anger and fear swirling in my chest. "Emily, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked up, a flicker of concern crossing her face. "What's wrong, babe?" she asked, her tone feigning innocence, but I could see the gears turning in her head. "I answered your phone earlier. It wasn't HR, was it?" The look on her face was one of confusion, but I didn't let her off the hook. "Just tell me who it was." She hesitated, her eyes darting to the side as if she was searching for an escape route. "It was just a colleague, Jason," she finally said, her voice laced with irritation. "You know how he jokes around, it's nothing." "Nothing." It sounded pretty serious to me. "Why don't you just tell me the truth?" I pressed, the frustration building. I needed to know. Emily rolled her eyes, the bitchy attitude surfacing. "You're being ridiculous. I work hard and I have to maintain relationships with my colleagues. You wouldn't understand." I felt my blood boil. "So it's wrong for me to be concerned. You're acting shady." She shrugged, her demeanor casual, as if I was making a fuss over nothing. "You're overreacting. Stop being paranoid." I had never seen her this dismissive. It felt like a slap in the face. I wanted to scream, to shake her until she admitted the truth. Instead, I felt the walls of our relationship begin to crumble. The trust was gone, and in its place was a pit of despair and rage. As the days passed, I started paying closer attention to every little detail. When she came home late, I noticed her perfume smelled different. When she laughed at something on her phone, I felt a pang of jealousy, a feeling I had never experienced before. Each night I found myself lying awake, counting the moments until she returned, wondering if it would be my last night with her or the start of something worse. My emotional journey was a roller coaster: shock, anger, sadness. I felt betrayed, and each time I thought I could push through it, another piece of evidence would present itself. I started looking for clues, my heart racing with the thrill of the hunt, determined to catch her in the act. Little did I know, my quest for the truth was about to take a dark turn. The more I searched, the more I began to uncover the depths of her deceit. The whispers of betrayal were louder than ever, and I was left grappling with the reality of a love I had thought was unbreakable. But the real question was, how would I respond to her betrayal? Would I seek vengeance, or would I try to salvage what was left? With my heart on my sleeve and my mind racing, I was about to find out. For the next week, I turned into a detective. I started tracking Emily's movements like they were part of a criminal investigation. Each late night and every mention of work felt like a cover-up, and I was determined to uncover the truth. I watched her more closely, scrutinizing the little things. The way she focused on her phone, the way her smile seemed a little too bright when she got a text. It all felt like clues gathering in a game whose rules I was just starting to understand. One Thursday night, she had planned to meet some friends for drinks after work. I tried to play it cool, telling myself that she deserved the time out, but the gnawing feeling in my gut told me otherwise. I dropped her off at a bar downtown and decided to take a drive around the block, just to ease my nerves. As I cruised past the bar, I saw her through the window, laughing and leaning closer to someone I didn't recognize. He had dark hair and a broad smile, and every laugh they shared felt like a dagger to my heart. I parked the car a block away, my heart pounding in. My ears, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was too far to hear their conversation, but I could see the way she touched his arm, the way her eyes sparkled with excitement. It was like watching a movie where the protagonist was someone else entirely. It felt unreal, like a bad dream. I should have left, should have turned away and pretended like I hadn't seen anything. But I couldn't. I was rooted to the spot, watching the scene unfold before me. The moment stretched on, and as the night wore on, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was losing her. I felt like a ghost in my own life, invisible to the woman I had loved for so long. Finally, a wave of anger washed over me. This isn't happening. I'm not going to sit here and let them enjoy my pain. So I stepped out of the car and marched toward the entrance. When I pushed through the door, the sound of laughter enveloped me, but it all faded when I locked eyes with Emily. She looked caught off guard, her smile faltering as she saw me standing there, fists clenched at my sides. Guy next to her, Jason, was leaning back casually, unaware of the storm that was about to unfold. "Emily, we need to talk," I said, my voice low but steady. The bar was loud, but the tension between us was palpable. I could feel the eyes of the patrons on us, and for a moment I reveled in the attention as though the world was waiting to see what I would do next. "Mark, what are you doing here?" she asked, an edge of annoyance creeping into her voice. I could see the panic in her eyes, the realization that her web of lies was beginning to unravel. "Don't play games with me. I saw you having fun with Jason here," I said, nodding toward him. "Are you really going to pretend this is just work?" Jason looked from me to Emily, confusion etched on his face, but I didn't care. The look of shock on Emily's face was all I needed. "You're overreacting," she snapped, trying to regain her composure. "We were just having a few drinks, you know how it is." "No, I don't know how it is," I shot back, my voice rising. "I know you've been lying to me and I want the truth. How long has this been going on?" Emily's expression changed, a defensive wall going up. "You're just jealous because I'm busy with work. You know how demanding my job is. You can't just jump to conclusions." "Busy?" I echoed incredulously. "You call this busy?" I gestured around the bar at the laughter and the drinks. "I can't believe you even have the nerve to deny it." Her eyes narrowed, and for a moment I felt a flicker of fear. Maybe this wasn't just a misunderstanding. Maybe I was right. "Mark, you need to chill out," she replied, the edge in her voice turning into ridicule. "You're making a scene. This isn't the place." "You're right," I said, lowering my voice. "This isn't the place. Let's go." I grabbed her arm and she flinched at my touch, pulling away. I was surprised at how easily she did it, as if I was nothing to her, like I was just another stranger. "Don't touch me," she hissed, but I didn't back down. I wasn't going to let her dismiss me like that. We stepped outside, the cool night air hitting us like a splash of water. I could feel my heart racing, the adrenaline coursing through my veins. "I deserve an explanation," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. The anger bubbling inside of me felt like a volcano ready to erupt. "Okay, fine," she said, crossing her arms defensively. "But don't think I owe you anything. If you can't handle me having friends, maybe this is where we part ways." I stared at her in disbelief. "So that's it, I'm supposed to just accept this. Maybe you should consider that you're the one with trust issues," she shot back, her voice cold. "I'm not the one who's been clingy." "Clingy," I repeated, my voice rising again. "You think I'm clingy for wanting to know who you are with when you're not home?" We went back and forth, each accusation escalating the tension. I was spiraling, feeling the weight of the betrayal crush me. I knew I should walk away, but I felt this impulse to fight for something I was losing, even if it meant tearing everything apart. Eventually, we stood in silence, just breathing heavily, staring each other down. I could see the anger in her eyes, but I also saw something else, fear. Amid the rage, I realized that she was scared of being caught, scared of losing her facade. This revelation sparked an idea, one that I hadn't quite grasped yet. Maybe I could turn this situation to my advantage. But first, I needed to gather all the evidence I could find. I had to know just how deep her lies ran. With that thought in mind, I headed home, my mind racing with plans of how to expose her. I was hurt, yes, but soon enough, I would turn this pain into something else entirely, something that would ensure she never forgot what she had done to me. The drive home felt surreal, my mind a whirlwind of confusion and betrayal. I felt like I was living someone else's life, a bad soap opera where the scripts were written by a cruel hand. Emily had always been my partner, my best friend, and now it felt like I was discovering a stranger beneath the surface. I arrived home, my heart still racing from the confrontation. I paced around the living room trying to collect my thoughts. My mind kept circling back to what I had seen, her laughter, the way she leaned towards Jason, the little touches that felt so intimate. It made me sick. I wanted to scream, to destroy something, but I knew I had to stay focused. Emotions were running high, and the last thing I needed was to act out of anger without a plan. Over the next few days, I became a ghost in my own home. I kept a close eye on Emily's habits, nodding every time she left, every late-night meeting she mentioned, and every text she received that made her smile. I learned to observe in silence, taking mental notes while hiding my pain behind a mask of indifference. I had to be careful. I didn't know how deep her deceit ran, and I couldn't risk tipping her off. One afternoon, while Emily was out for a meeting, I decided to take a look at her phone. It was a gamble, but at this point, I was desperate for answers. I knew she kept her phone unlocked, a careless mistake that was about to work in my favor. I grabbed it and sat on the couch, heart pounding as I opened her messages. As I scrolled through, my heart sank. There were dozens of texts exchanged with Jason, flirty messages, inside jokes, even plans for secret meetups. The evidence was undeniable. One text read, "Can't wait to see you again. Last time was amazing." Winking face, I felt bitterness creep in, twisting like a knife in my gut. I was a fool to think she would be honest with me. I snapped screenshots of the messages, each one like a dagger piercing my heart. This was going to be my ammunition for the day of reckoning, the moment when I would finally confront her with the truth. I felt a mix of anger and satisfaction, as if I was finally taking back some control over the situation. After I had gathered enough evidence, I decided to follow her the next time she said she was going out with friends. I needed to see for myself what was really happening. I had to confirm that Jason wasn't just a distraction. I needed to know if their relationship was as serious as it seemed. That Sunday evening, Emily got dressed up, wearing a tight black dress that hugged her curves. I felt an icy chill run down my spine. She looked stunning, a fact that only fueled my anger. She adjusted her hair in the mirror, looked satisfied with her reflection, and I felt the familiar ache in my chest. I grabbed my keys and slipped out the door, driving to the restaurant where she told me she was meeting her friends. I parked down the street, watching the entrance like a hawk. I felt like I was in a movie, spying on the villain. As I watched her walk in, she smiled and waved at someone inside, and my blood boiled. I waited, my heart pounding in anticipation. Nearly an hour passed before she emerged, but she wasn't alone. Jason was with her. They walked closely together, their laughter ringing out into the night air. She leaned in to whisper something in his ear, and he threw his head back, laughing loudly. It felt like a punch to the gut. The sight of them together ignited a fire inside me, a desire for revenge that I had never felt before. I was done being the victim. It was time to take control of my narrative. I followed them discreetly, my heart racing with every step. They made their way to a park nearby, finding a secluded bench under the glow of a streetlight. I watched from a distance, my body tense with anticipation. Would they kiss? Would I see the betrayal in action? And then it happened. Jason leaned in closer and Emily giggled, her eyes sparkling. He placed a hand on her thigh and she didn't pull away. Instead, she tilted her head, their faces inches apart, and just when I thought it was over, they kissed. It was soft at first, but as the seconds ticked by, it turned passionate. I felt my heart shatter into a million pieces, the pain washing over me like a cold wave. Anger surged through me, an electric current that ignited something primal. I was no longer the heartbroken husband watching from a distance. I was a storm ready to unleash a torrent of chaos. I couldn't just stand there watching her betray me. I had to confront them. This was my moment. I stepped out from behind the trees, my heart pounding in my chest as I approached them. I didn't think about the consequences. I didn't care. All I could focus on was the betrayal that had been laid bare before me. "Emily," I shouted, my voice slicing through the night like a knife. She turned, her eyes wide with shock, and Jason pulled away, confusion written across his face. "Mark, what are you doing here?" she stammered, panic taking over her features. I could see the color drain from her face, the mask of confidence slipping away. "You want to explain this?" I demanded, my voice thick with rage as I gestured between them. "You've been lying to me and I've had enough." Jason shifted uneasily and I could see him trying to gauge the situation. Emily, however, was quickly trying to regain her composure, but the shock of being caught off guard was evident. "Mark, this is not what it looks like," she lied, her voice trembling slightly. "We were just what?" I interrupted. "Just having a good time while your husband is at home. Spare me the excuses. You've been having an affair, and I have the messages to prove it." The world around us fell silent as her eyes widened. I could see the wheels turning in her mind, but there was no escape this time. The truth was out, and I had come to claim my revenge. I was done playing the fool. Now it was time for Emily to face the consequences of her actions. I'd never felt more powerful and more broken in the same moment, but I was ready to take the plunge. This was the reckoning, and I was just getting started. The tension in the air was palpable, like a wire stretched too tight, ready to snap. Emily's expression shifted from shock to indignation, and I could see her scrambling for words, searching for a way to twist the narrative back in her favor. But there was no turning back now. I had exposed her in front of Jason, and the truth hung in the air like a heavy fog. "Mark, you're being ridiculous," she said, her voice rising to a defensive pitch. "You're misunderstanding everything." "Misunderstanding?" I echoed incredulously. "You think I'm misunderstanding the texts where you're talking about how amazing your time together was, or the intimate plans you made with him? What part of that am I supposed to misunderstand?" Jason stood there, glancing back and forth between us. He looked uncomfortable, like he had stumbled into a conflict that was none of his business. I didn't care about him. My focus was entirely on Emily, the woman who had betrayed me in the most painful way possible. "Look, Mark, I can explain." Emily tried again, desperation creeping into her voice. "It's not what it seems. Jason is just a friend. Just a friend." I scoffed, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "So you're telling me that friends kiss each other on park benches? Is that your definition of friendship?" She opened her mouth, but no words came out. The truth had rendered her speechless, and I felt a twisted sense of satisfaction wash over me. I wanted her to feel the weight of her lies, the burden of betrayal that had been hanging over our marriage. After everything we built together, she had thrown it away for a few moments of pleasure. "Why, Emily?" I demanded, my voice low and intense. "Why would you throw everything away? Was I not enough? Did I do something wrong?" Her face softened for a moment, and I could see a flicker of guilt flash in her eyes, but it was quickly replaced by defiance. "You don't understand how hard things have been for me," she shot back. "You've been so wrapped up in your work, and I've felt so alone. I didn't mean for it to happen, but Jason, he was there for me." I could feel anger boiling inside me, the betrayal stinging sharper than 1,000 knives. "So you decided to fuck him instead of talking to your husband. That's your solution. You think running off to another man is the answer." "I didn't plan for any of this," she shouted back, her voice breaking. "I just wanted to feel wanted again, to feel alive. You've been so distant." The raw emotion in her words cut deep, and for a fleeting moment I felt the weight of my own shortcomings. I had focused so much on my job, thinking I was providing for us, that I hadn't tended to the emotional needs of my marriage. But that didn't justify her actions. It didn't excuse the betrayal I had discovered. "I understand that you've been feeling neglected," I said, trying to remain composed. "But instead of coming to me, you chose to cheat. You chose to destroy what we had. You made your bed, now you have to lie in it." Emily's face crumpled, and for a moment I thought I saw remorse flicker in her eyes, but it was buried beneath layers of anger and denial. "So what do you want me to say? That I'm sorry? That I made a mistake? You're not perfect either, Mark." "Maybe I'm not," I admitted, my heart heavy. "But I didn't betray you. I didn't go running into someone else's arms. You've made your choice and now you need to face the consequences of those choices. Jason, still standing awkwardly to the side, finally spoke up. Maybe we should all just take a step back and step back. I cut him off, glaring at him. This isn't your fight. You don't get to play the mediator here. You're the one who has been sleeping with my wife. At that, Emily turned on him, anger flashing in her eyes. You don't have to take this from him, Jason. I can handle this. His face paled and he took a step back. I didn't mean to cause any trouble. I just thought what? I challenged. That you could just take my place, that you could waltz in and swoop her away. Enough, Emily shouted, her voice echoing in the quiet park. This isn't helping anything. We need to figure out what happens next. I took a deep breath, trying to rein in my emotions. What happens next is up to you, Emily. You need to decide what you want. Do you want to try to salvage our marriage, or do you want to keep chasing whatever this is with Jason? The silence that followed felt heavy, as if the world was holding its breath. Emily's expression shifted as she glanced at Jason, then back to me. I could see the conflict in her eyes, the realization of the choices she had made. But instead of breaking down, she straightened her back, the defiance returning. I don't know, Mark, she replied, her voice steady but laced with uncertainty. Maybe I need some time to think. Time? I echoed, my heart sinking. We don't have time. You've already made your decision by betraying me. You can't just hit pause on a marriage after you've shattered it. Her eyes flashed with anger, but I could see the cracks in her facade. Maybe I need to find out who I really am without you, she said, her voice steadier now. Is that what you really want, to walk away from everything we've built? I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. What about us? What about our vows? But she just stood there, her expression unreadable. I felt a wave of despair wash over me. The woman I loved was slipping through my fingers, and it was as if I was watching a part of my life disintegrate before my very eyes. Mark, I don't know how to fix this, she said, her voice softer now, almost vulnerable. I need space. With that, she turned to Jason, and I felt the walls closing in around me. The betrayal had become a reality I couldn't escape. I had no idea what would happen next, but I knew this was just the beginning. I'd have to make a decision about how to move forward. Myself, and I was determined to ensure that whatever choice I made would reclaim my power in this shattered relationship. As they walked away together, I felt a sense of resolution wash over me. I would not let this define me. I would not let her choices destroy the man I was. I had to find a way to rise from the ashes of this heartbreak. I would find a way to heal, to rebuild, and possibly to seek my own form of revenge. After all, I was done being the victim in this story. I was ready to take back control. The days following that confrontation felt like an eternity. I was adrift in a sea of anger, sadness, and confusion. Emily moved out that same week, saying it was for the best, that we both needed time to think. She packed up her things in a rush, avoiding my eyes, and I felt a pang of loss as I watched the life we had built together being dismantled piece by piece. The first few nights without her were the hardest. The silence in our home was deafening, echoing with memories of laughter and love. I wandered through the empty rooms haunted by the ghost of our past. I'd see her favorite mug in the sink, the scent of her perfume lingering in the air, and it would strike me like a blow to the gut. I missed her, but I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal that coursed through my veins. I spent hours scrolling through our old photos, reminiscing about happier times. But each smile I saw made my heart ache deeper, reminding me of what I had lost and what she had so carelessly thrown away. It didn't take long for me to realize that I had to take action, not just to heal, but to reclaim my life. I reached out to old friends I hadn't seen in years, inviting them over for drinks and laughter, desperate for distraction. It felt good to be around people who cared for me, who reminded me that I was more than just Emily's husband. I began to rediscover parts of myself that I had neglected during our marriage. I picked up hobbies I had let fall to the wayside, like running and painting, reconnecting with the passions that made me feel alive. But beneath the surface of this newfound independence, the anger still simmered. Emily's betrayal was a festering wound, and I needed closure. I resolved to confront Jason. He was the man who had taken from me, who had broken my heart, and I wanted him to know the pain he had caused. I found out where he worked, using a combination of social media and a little digging. It felt wrong to stalk him, but the rage felt justified. I wanted him to know that I was aware of his involvement with my wife, that he had crossed a line he shouldn't have. So one afternoon, I walked into the office of his marketing firm, heart racing with anticipation. I spotted him in a conference room, chatting with some colleagues. He had a smug smile on his face, completely unaware of the storm that was about to hit him. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation, and stepped inside. "Jason," I said, my voice steady but laced with tension. He turned to me, the smile fading as recognition dawned on his face. "What are you doing here, Mark?" he asked, his tone defensive. I stepped closer, locking eyes with him. "I want to talk to you, man-to-man. You need to understand what you've done." He shifted uncomfortably, glancing at the other people in the room who were now looking curiously at our exchange. "This really isn't the time or place for this," he said, trying to brush me off. "Oh, I think it is," I countered, my voice low but firm. "You think it's okay to have an affair with my wife and pretend like it's nothing. You need to understand the damage you've caused." His expression hardened, and for a moment I could see the fear in his eyes. "Look, I didn't mean to get caught up in this," he said, a hint of defensiveness creeping into his voice. "Didn't mean to," I scoffed. "You made a choice, Jason. You knew she was married, and yet you still decided to pursue her. You think this is just a game." He opened his mouth to argue, but I cut him off. "You've toyed with my life, and now you think you can just walk away without any consequence." "Mark, I never meant for this to happen," he said, his voice a mix of frustration and fear. Emily and you what? You think you're just going to sweep this under the rug, that it doesn't matter that you broke a vow. You've shattered everything I believed in. You don't get to just walk away." I could feel the tension building, my heart racing as adrenaline surged through me. I was on the edge of something explosive, ready to unleash the anger that had been brewing for weeks. "Listen, man, I'm sorry you're hurting, but Emily made her own choices," he said, his tone defensive. "Right, she made choices," I replied, my voice hardening. "But you were complicit in those choices. You knew what you were getting into and you didn't care. You thought you could just have fun at my expense, didn't you?" He opened his mouth to respond, but I could see that he was backing down. Something in my gaze must have struck a chord. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was standing my ground. "I hope you know what you've done," I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. "I hope you lose sleep over it. I hope you realize that while you may have had a fling, you've destroyed a marriage. You may think it's over for us, but the consequences of your actions don't just vanish." With that, I turned and walked out, my heart pounding in my chest. I felt a rush of power surging through me, a sense of reclaiming control over my life. I hadn't solved anything, and I didn't expect Jason to be remorseful, but I had made my point. Later that night, I sat at home, contemplating my next steps. I still had a long way to go, but I had taken a stand. I realized that I couldn't dwell on what Emily had done to me. Instead, I had to focus on how to rebuild my life. I was determined to find happiness again, no matter how long it took. It was time to move on, to heal, and to rediscover who I was outside of her shadow. I didn't need her to define me anymore. I was ready to rise from the ashes of betrayal and reclaim my identity. The journey wouldn't be easy, but I was finally ready to take that first step toward healing and perhaps, eventually, forgiveness. As the weeks turned into months, I poured myself into rebuilding my life. The anger and pain I had felt when Emily left began to morph into motivation. I found myself channeling the emotional turmoil into something productive instead of letting it consume me. I took up running, finding solace in the rhythm of my breath and the pounding of my feet against the pavement. Each mile felt like a step toward reclaiming my identity, a way to shed the weight of betrayal and hurt. I also threw myself into my work. With renewed focus, I tackled projects that had previously felt tedious and mundane. I was determined to excel, to prove to myself that I was more than just Emily's husband. My colleagues noticed the change, and I found myself gaining recognition in ways I hadn't anticipated. Promotions and accolades began to fall into my lap as I embraced this new chapter of my life. Slowly but surely, the fog of sadness lifted. I discovered a newfound freedom in my independence, and began to reconnect with old friends. We would gather for Friday night hangouts, filled with laughter and shared stories. It felt good to be surrounded by people who cared about me for who I was, not just as an extension of my marriage. I began to remember the parts of myself I had lost in the throes of a failing relationship. Despite my progress, there were still moments when I thought of Emily. I would occasionally see her name pop up on social media, and curiosity would tug at me, but I learned to resist the urge to reach out. I had accepted that our marriage was over, and I knew that dwelling on the past would only hinder my healing. One day, while sitting at a coffee shop, I bumped into Emily. My heart raced at the sight of her. She looked different. Maybe it was the way she was dressed, or perhaps it was the subtle shift in her demeanor. She seemed more reserved, and it struck me that she was no longer the confident woman I had once known. The light I had loved seemed dimmed, and in that moment I realized that she had been grappling with her own consequences since our separation. "Mark," she said, her voice hesitant as she approached. "It's been a while." "Yeah, it has," I replied, trying to keep my composure. The feelings that had once overwhelmed me were now tempered by time and distance. I felt no need for anger. Instead, I saw someone who had once been a significant part of my life. "Can we talk?" she asked, her eyes searching mine for a hint of understanding. I nodded, gesturing for her to join me at my table. As we sat down, there was an awkward tension in the air. I watched as she fidgeted with her coffee cup, the silence hanging between us heavy with unspoken words. "I've been thinking a lot about everything," she began, her voice steady but tinged with vulnerability. "About us, about what I did." I stayed silent, allowing her to express herself. I wanted to hear her out, to understand where she was coming from. "I know I hurt you," she continued, a hint of regret creeping into her voice. "I was selfish, and I can't blame you for being angry. I lost myself. I didn't know how to reach out to you, and when Jason came along, it felt like an escape." The honesty in her words caught me off guard. I had expected her to be defensive, to downplay the affair, but instead there was a raw authenticity that resonated with me. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she added, her gaze dropping to the table. "I just wanted to say that I'm sorry for everything. I regret losing you, and I realize now how much I took for granted." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her apology settle over me. "Thank you for saying that," I replied, my voice calm. "It means a lot to hear you acknowledge what happened." There was a moment of silence as we both absorbed the weight of our shared history. I felt a mixture of emotions wash over me: sadness, nostalgia, but also a sense of closure. "I've been working on myself too," she said, looking back up at me. "I've realized how important it is to communicate and to not let things fester. I've been going to therapy, trying to understand my choices and the things I need to change." "I'm glad to hear that," I said honestly. "It sounds like you're making progress." Emily nodded, and there was a sense of understanding that passed between us. We were both on different paths now, but perhaps we could acknowledge the impact we had on each other's lives. "Do you think we could ever be friends?" she asked tentatively. It was an unexpected question. I considered it for a moment. "I think it's possible," I replied, "but it will take time. Right now, I'm still focused on rebuilding my life and finding out who I am outside of our marriage." "Of course," she said, her expression softening. "I would never want to rush anything. I just wanted you to know that I'm here if you ever want to talk." As we parted ways that day, I felt a sense of freedom wash over me. I had gone from being the victim of betrayal to a person forging a new path. I couldn't change the past, but I could shape my future. I had learned valuable lessons about self-worth, communication, and resilience. Moving forward, I knew I would embrace the opportunities that lay ahead, whether it was new relationships, career advancements, or personal growth. I was ready to let go of the pain and embrace the possibilities waiting for me just around the corner. In the end, I realized that I would be okay. I was still standing, still fighting, and still capable of love, both for myself and for others. I had emerged from the darkness, and now I was ready to step into the light.